Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a tier list of all of the guns in Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Warzone. I did this video a couple months ago about tiering all of the guns in Call of Duty Modern Warfare Season 2 and 3, but I decided to make this a monthly thing or a seasonally thing and do it every season. You should know that there is a specific way I tier guns. If something is an S tier, it does not mean that it is the best weapon in the game. It means that it is way too overpowered for the category of gun that it is, and the opposite for F tier. A big thanks to Vicstar123 for making this tier list. Go check out his channel. He did the same video on this a couple days ago, and it's a really good video, so thank you. Without further ado, let's get started. Also, the further to the left the gun is in the tier, the better it is compared to the other guns in the tier. The first gun is the 1911, and let's just talk about that for a second. So the 1911 is kind of your standard pistol, you know. It's a pretty good gun, it has pretty good damage. I don't like the starting magazine size, although you can get a bigger one. I would have to say that this gun might go C or D tier. Probably, yeah, I think I'm going to put it in C tier. The next gun is the revolver, or the 357 Magnum. And I think this is a pretty good gun. I'd say it's probably B tier with the snake shots, but we have to consider everything. I know the range got nerfed, so I think I'm going to put it in C tier. The next gun is the 50GS, or the Deagle, and I think this is a really strong weapon. It's probably going to go in B tier or C tier. Yeah, I think it could even go in A tier, honestly. It's really strong. It's a 2-hit in multiplayer, and it's really good. It's going to go in B tier. The next gun is the 725 shotgun. This gun is absolutely horrible. It's also very annoying when people use this in small maps like Shipment. I think it's going to go in D tier. The next gun is the AK. I think it's going to go probably in C tier. It's very, very frustrating because the recoil pattern is very hard to control. It's just a really hard gun to use. Next we have the CR56 AMAX. I think this is going to be probably a B tier weapon. This gun's really strong, has some good damage. I really enjoy using it too. I think I'm actually going to move the AK a little forwards. I think it's better than those two pistols. There we go. Alright, next we have the AUG, and I think this is a pretty strong SMG. I don't think it's as good as some of the other SMGs in the game. I'd say it's probably going to have to go in B, I don't know, probably C tier. But you know what, I think it's better than the AK. Or, yeah, I think it's probably better than the AK-47. It's a pretty strong weapon overall, but not as good as some of the other ones. The next weapon is the Axe 50, and I think this is definitely the best sniper in the game. It's a really strong weapon. Multiplayer is very fun to use. It's going to have to go in A tier. There's not really much explanation that I can do about it. It's just a very strong weapon. I think we're going to come back to the Bruin MK9 in a bit, but let's move on to the combat knife. This gun, I kind of have the same opinion I do as I had in my last video. I think it's probably D tier. People kind of use it for fun and as a joke. It's not that great. Next we have the crossbow. I'd say this is kind of borderline C tier. The reload time is just way too slow. And I guess it's a one-shot, but it's just a very hard gun to use. And the bullet drop is insane. Next we have the Dragunov, and I do not like this gun at all. It's just going to go straight to D tier. No further explanation. Now we have the EBR-14. I kind of like this gun, not really. I would say it's probably C tier. Probably worse than the crossbow. Next we have the FAL, and you already know it is an S tier. I don't know what Activision was thinking. This gun is way too overpowered to be an AR. Next we have the Fennec, and I'd say this is a pretty decent gun. You know, the fire rate is really good, and it can shred people pretty quickly. I would say it'd probably have to go to B tier. It's just not the best at long range, and you have to hit your shots for it to be good. Alright, next we have the Grau 556, and as many people know, it got nerfed a lot, but I don't think that is stopping people from using it. It's still super strong. I think it's going to have to go in A tier, probably a little better than the Axe 50, a really good weapon. This next one's going to be controversial. I just can't use the HDR. It's going to have to go in B tier. It does a little less damage than the Axe 50, but that little damage does a lot, actually. So it's going to go in B tier, probably. Not as good as the Fennec, but a little better than the Deagle, I think. Next we have the Holger 26, and I actually haven't used this gun very much, but the times I have used it, I have not been the biggest fan. The recoil pattern, and actually just the recoil in general, is very bad. I think it's going to have to go in C tier. Probably, maybe right behind the 19... Nah, I think it's a little better than the 1911, but it's just not a great gun because of the recoil. Next we have the Collie Sticks, and statistically they should be worse than the combat knife, but they are just so fun to use. I don't know why they are a 2-hit and the combat knife is a 1-hit. I'm going to have to put in C tier because it's just such a fun gun to use. Next we have the Car. I think this is a really strong gun. Probably not A tier, definitely B tier. I'd say it's, I don't know, probably not as good as the CR56 Max, but a little better than the Fennec. It's a really strong gun. Next we have the Kilo. This is also going to be an A tier weapon. I've always loved the Kilo. It is just a really good and accurate gun to use. Coming up we have the M13, and this gun, it has just no recoil. It's crazy. I don't even know how it has no recoil. You hardly need any attachments for recoil, but it's just such a good gun. Next we have the M4, and this has always been one of my favorite guns. It holds a special place in my heart. It's a really good gun. You need a lot of recoil attachments. I'd say it's probably better than the Kilo, but not as good as the M13. Next we have the M19 pistol. This pistol is okay. I like how you can give it a pretty good magazine size. I'd say it's probably a little worse than the Deagle, but better than the crossbow. Next we have the M91 LMG, and this LMG is actually really good to get if you land on top of Superstore, because you can just melt like 20 kids in a row without having to reload. Actually, it's kind of the same with any LMG, it's just easy to find. Speaking of LMGs, we have the MG34. This is a horrible gun. I don't really need to explain. The recoil is just insanely horrible. After that, we have a carbine. This is an okay gun. I'd say it's probably B tier. I know a lot of people don't like when people use it, but I kind of like it. Speaking of guns that people don't like when other people use, we have the Model 680. This gun, personally, I think is good. I just know that a lot of people hate when people use it because it's kind of an easy gun to use. But I think it's still good, and it's probably going to go in B tier. After that comes probably my favorite gun in the game, the MP5. Oh my gosh, this gun shreds. It is so good. Probably the best gun in A tier. Doesn't quite make it to S tier because I think it's still good for an SMG, not too overpowered. After that, I am sad to say, but the MP7 has bumped down in my list. It is probably a little worse than the Kilo. I don't know, I just feel like all the guns in front of it have a higher TTK and are just easier to use in general. After that, we have the most underrated gun in the game, the Odin. This gun shreds. It does so much damage. It is crazy. It's definitely going to go in B tier for me. A little worse than the Fennec, but a little better than the HDR. After that, we have the Origin 12 shotgun. This shotgun is not the best. You know, it's probably going to go in C tier, a little ahead of the 1911. After that, we have the P90. This gun is also really strong. I'd say if it had a higher damage, it would be an A tier, but the starting magazine size is really good. And I think that's what makes it a really strong weapon, and the fire rate too. Next, we have the PKM, and this is a pretty good LMG. I think it has a really good damage profile. It's definitely better than the M91. I think I'll probably say it's B tier. I don't know. I think it's a little better than the Odin, but not as good as the Fennec. After that, we have the PP19 Bison, and this one is kind of... Let's talk about that for a second. The Bison is a really very, very, very strong gun in multiplayer on small maps because of the damage. In Warzone, I feel like I personally struggle with it just because of the recoil, and if you don't have a scope on it, it's really hard to hit shots from long range. But then if you use it at close range, other guns like the MP7 shred a little faster. I think it's probably the best gun in C tier, but just not making it to B tier. After that, we have the R9-0 shotgun. This one's probably a little worse than the 1911. Definitely worse than the Origin 12. It's not a good gun. It's going to have to go in C tier. After that, we have the Ram 7. I do really enjoy playing with this gun, but there's so much recoil, and I feel like all of the attachments that you put on it have to be recoil control. But if you do have that, it's really good. That's why it's going to go in B tier. After that, we have the Renetti, and the Renetti actually got nerfed, so I don't think it is an S tier weapon. Even with the burst, it is not that great because of the recoil and the range. I think it's probably going to go in B tier, definitely better than the M91. Next, we have the Riot Shield, and I hate the Riot Shield so much I cannot use it. I have probably 0 kills with it, maybe 1 kill with it. It's going to go in D tier. Not good. Maybe it's good if you have it on your back if you're running combat knife, but otherwise not good. After that, we have the Retic AMR Sniper. When this first came out, I remember everybody was saying, oh my gosh, this is such an OP sniper. It isn't. It is horrible. The recoil, and I know that sounds weird, but the recoil is crazy and it's extremely hard to hit shots. I'm going to admit, I kind of bashed the SA-87 in my last video. This gun is actually really strong. It might have to go in B tier. Its damage is really good, and if you can play well with it, which I couldn't before, but if you can play well with it, it is a really strong weapon. I think it's probably gonna have to go in C tier, a little behind the PP19 Bison. Very strong weapon. After that, we have this Scar, and this is a good weapon. You know, it's okay at long range, I guess. It kind of shreds, but I don't think it's just as good as the CR56 AMAX, which is kind of a similar gun to it. So I think it's gonna have to go in B tier. After that, we have the SKS, and I cannot use this. This sounds weird, but when you shoot, there's like smoke in front of the gun, so you can't hit shots over and over again, and that's really the only way to kill people with it. After that, we have the Striker 45. Again, I haven't really played much with this gun. I just know that it's really good when it comes to damage and range. You know, probably you have to go to B tier. It's a pretty strong weapon. After that, we have the Uzi, one of the most underrated guns in the game. Definitely A tier. Really good damage. I know a lot of people hate it, but I absolutely love this gun. After that, we have the VLK Rogue Shotgun. And this gun is okay. I just don't really like it and I can't use it. It's going to have to go in D tier. I don't think it's very strong, and I hate getting it in Warzone. After that, we have the X16, and I think this is probably the best pistol besides the Renetti and the 50GS. It's really good, you know, has good damage, and I think everybody's kind of good at it because you get it in the beginning of Warzone, and I think everybody's kind of used to it. Okay, time to get to the Bruin. You guys already know it, S tier. This gun is absolutely incredible. Oh my gosh, not only is this way too overpowered to be an LMG, this gun is also way too overpowered to be any gun in the game. It is so good. It is incredible. It is probably the best gun in the game. Definitely my favorite. I love this gun. If you use the 60 round mag, it becomes very, very, very overpowered. I cannot stress that enough. Now I'm going to show you the best setup for the MP5, Bruin, and the M13. On the Bruin, I think no doubt you're going to want to run the monolithic suppressor, the XRX Summit 26.6 barrel, the TAC laser, the VLK 3x optic, and the 60 round mag. For the M13, you're going to want to run the monolithic suppressor, the Tempest marksman barrel, the GI Mini Reflex, or any optic that you like, 60 round mag, and Commando foregrip. This is kind of a controversial one. I run personally the monolithic integral suppressor barrel, tac laser, the FTAC collapsible stock 45 round mag, in the Merc foregrip. Although you could run the monolithic suppressor instead of the integral one, and you could also replace tac laser with stipple grip tape. That's going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please leave in the comments down below what your opinion on these guns are. Please consider subscribing, and I hope you have a good day.